Edinburgh Reel is sponsored by Total Health, one of the UK's leading wellbeing organisations committed to helping individuals, athletes and businesses build health and performance.
This is Edinburgh Reel, a show dedicated to delivering compelling conversations with fascinating people. I'm Elliot Reeves, and I'm joined by a special guest co-host, record-breaking extreme unicyclist and former Edinburgh Reel guest, Jason Auld.
Woo!
Thanks for having me, Elliot.
You're welcome. Our guest today is Zara Janjua. Zara is a video journalist, reporter and presenter with broadcast network STV. You have an extensive background as a journalist and editor, as well as having a postgraduate degree in digital journalism. Zara, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Edinburgh
Thanks
Reel.
very much, Elliot.
You're welcome.
I feel like I was going to give Jason a bit of a round of applause there.
Okay.
I feel
Why
like he
not?
deserved
Go ahead.
it.
I mean, it happens all the time.
He's not done anything yet, though, has he? He doesn't
No.
deserve it.
My credentials aren't as good as yours.
Maybe one day. So I thought we could open with a nice simple question just
Sure.
to get us eased in. So who is Zara Janjua?
I mean, I'm going to become a bit of a philosopher if you're going to,
Excellent.
if you give me enough
Okay.
time. But no. I mean, I guess if the easiest thing to say is, I guess most people start this by saying what they do, which obviously you've explained. But I think I'm just a generally very creative person that likes people and just creating stuff. So I've seemed to work very well in the industry that I'm in at the moment. But God, it is quite a broad question, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
who am I?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm starting to look deep within myself. There's a bit of soul searching going on here now.
That's part of why you're here. That's
Thanks.
part of Edinburgh Reel's.
I feel like that might have been a bit of a curveball
Role.
you've thrown me already.
So, okay, tell us then about your journey to date, if you like, and how you ended up working in television.
I think it's an absolute fluke, really, that
Okay.
I am where I am, and it's definitely it shows me that anyone can do it, because I initially studied business, which my dad had a business, and I always thought I was going to have my own. I still kind of think I might have my own business one day. I have a lot of ideas for little gadgets and things, so I'd love to think that'll happen one day. So I thought I'd study business, but realised very quickly after graduating I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do with it. And I was sitting at a computer at mum and dad's house looking at jobs that I was being offered or jobs that I could go for, and none of them appealed to me. So I had this sort of moment where, a fantasy moment, let's call it, where I just thought, let's see what the most exciting job that I could apply for, potentially could get, was. So I applied for a job running a rum bar in Bermuda, and I think it was on a Sunday, and I think I had the yeah, my parents were so happy.
That would be an awesome job.
So
This
yeah,
would be a very different interview.
So I applied on Sunday. I had the interview on the Wednesday, and I was there by the following Saturday. So it took less than a week to kind of turn it round. And I I left by myself, went across to Bermuda for a year. Actually, I was working out there. Great time, I had
You
an
did get that job.
I did
Oh,
get
wow.
that job. Yeah.
What was that like?
Incredible.
It was great. Yeah, it was a nice breather. I think, if you don't know what you want to do in life, the best thing you can do is just go and get experiences. And I think that's the one thing that's always driven me, is that I know life's short and I want to make the most of it. And so, every experience that I have, I really cherish, and every opportunity that I'm offered, I grab with both hands, because you just don't know when it's going to stop. You don't know when it's going to end. So that was just an excuse for me. I'm pitching it to you like it was some big grand plan. Really, I was 22, I left uni, and I wanted to work in a rum bar and drink lots of rum in the sun. So that's kind of what I did in the Caribbean for a while. So left there and went to New York very briefly to work in a bar, and just spent a little bit of time in New York, and came back and thought, I don't know where I'm going from here. And again, there's so many people that do have, I've never really known, or until then I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think there's so much pressure when you're that age that you feel like you need to find something that you want to do. And I was always really jealous of people in school who knew instantly, the people that at 12, 13 would say, I want to be a doctor, or, I want to be an accountant. And I was always really envious of them. I was going to say, no, I was jealous. And I just thought it must be amazing to know exactly what you want from life. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and the best thing I could do was continue to go travelling. So I went travelling for a couple of years and just spent a lot of time around Europe. I don't want to give you too many examples of what we got up to, but let's just say they were valuable life experiences.
We'll get them after.
They were great life experiences.
There's no secrets here, Zara, don't worry.
Yeah, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? It's not going anywhere. That's cool. Yeah, I'm glad. I've not signed anything, have I? No.
Thankfully.
So yeah, it wasn't until I'd been travelling for a while, and I think my mum and dad must have thought I was going to end up in some hippie commune, in Sri Lanka or something. I don't know. They just kind of started saying, when are you going to think about what you want to do? And I'd always really enjoyed writing. I've always been a writer, and wondered how I could turn that into a career. And I love people, love talking to people. So it just made sense to me that I'd try journalism. So I was very lucky that I got offered a master's course, and it was only a year. So I did that, but I knew that was at Strathclyde, 4 years ago. And I knew that if I was going to do that, then I really had to give it a big push. And I don't know where it comes from, the motivation. You just kind of get to a point in your life where, I think it is when you realise what you want to do, that you grab it wholeheartedly, and I threw myself into it in such a big way. I was really fortunate with the people that I had around me. I was really fortunate that I had the support from, family and friends. Everything was very conducive at that point in my life to working towards something. And at that point I was very focused on coming out with a first, which you realise afterwards doesn't really make much of a difference. Or I was focused on getting a distinction, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference, but at that point that was kind of where the drive was coming from. So yeah, I managed to I graduated, was really happy with the result, but I think the most valuable thing that I did within my time studying was all the extra stuff. And it was, I'd applied for work experience at the Scotsman newspaper, and actually it was quite funny because when I got the call, it was from Stephen McGinty at the Scotsman, and he said that he'd been walking through the newsroom and he'd just seen a letter lying on the ground, and he picked it up and opened it, and it'd been my letter requesting to come along and do some work experience. So probably anyone else would have chucked it in the bin, but he was great. He got in touch and he got me to come along, and he'd mentioned that a few people had been in before, and they'd got one of them. He said one person was great. She came in and she was fantastic. She got a front page story within a week, and I remember thinking, I'm going to do that when I go to work for the Scotsman. That's what I'm going to do for the first week. So on my third day, I managed to get a front page story, which it's that kind of competitiveness that I think that you see in the industry, and you learn over time what it is that drives you. And I think competition can be quite healthy. You'll know that, Jason.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think it pushes you to get more out of yourself, doesn't it? It's not necessarily about trying to be better than other people. It's just trying to get the best out of yourself.
Helps you set a goal, doesn't it? It helps you sort of see what you want to achieve. Because
it's quite easy to become lackadaisical and not push yourself if you feel like you're kind of achieving relatively good standards. But because you could have easily have walked in there and said, I'll just go with the flow and I'll work hard. But to set yourself, obviously, the high bar of what someone had told you was this great achievement that someone previously had done, it pushes you to do what you've done. So
well, yeah, I think that was the first time that I realised that you have to kind of really set your own goals for yourself, though, and be very specific in what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So when one of my lecturers, Dr. Eamon O'Neill, he asked me to get involved with the Innocence Project. So it's a big organisation in America. We draft appeals to the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission. We investigated miscarriages of justice, essentially. And I got to work with a team of investigative journalists and lawyers. We looked at a couple of cases, quite high-profile cases, and it was great, great training, a great group of people led by a great mentor who showed us really how to investigate and how we had case files, and we had to re-interview witnesses, go to the scene of crimes, and it was just a really valuable experience, showing you exactly how methodical you have to be and how thorough you have to be with research, how important that is. But it also gives you a sense, anyone who gets into journalism will say the reason they get into it is to make a difference. You always think that you want to make a difference, and it's very rare to do that, I think. So that was the first point where it really fueled that fire in me, and I thought, this is a great experience. This is kind of what I want to be doing. So I did have quite a good experience from that, and was very fortunate to be awarded a a place in the Scottish Human Rights Commission, so they offered me a spot after I finished uni to come and get some more experience. And God, work experience is priceless when you're in this job. If you want to build a career, you have to go in, you have to demonstrate that you can take the initiative, that you can really bring something to the table, and you need to try and stand out. And I always had that very much at the forefront of my mind anywhere I went, was try and stand out, try and do something different, try and wow them, because you want them to remember you when you leave, you know.
And so what do you think are the skills or the attributes that you have that make you good at what you do?
I think it's you have to listen a lot to people. You have to be able to listen and to really have empathy and understand, have that sort of awareness, really. I think that's my biggest strength, is people that I do love them, but I also think I'm just really fortunate that I have met a lot of great people, and you know, that they have been magnificent. They've, you know, opened up, they've told me their stories, they've shared their stories, and it's them. It's not, you know, it's not necessarily me. Whether, you know, you then want to draw in on how much how many skills you have in interviewing, or, you know, technically what you can do. You know, you can learn how to pick up a camera, you can learn how to do all of that, but really to be able to relate to people, I think, is such an important part of what I do.
Yeah.
Definitely. I 100% agree, having met you through that process, and as someone who's done 1,000,001 interviews, including Edinburgh Real, which has got to be number one. I think it is really important.
So
I think,
charming.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not as simple as, you know, just pointing a camera at someone interesting. You've got to kind of, I don't want to say like coach it out of them, but it really does make a difference to have someone on the other side that kind of knows how to get the best out of you.
And is interested in you. That's,
absolutely,
you know,
exactly.
You can't fake it. You know, you have to be genuine. You have to really actually enjoy people.
Definitely.
But you were hard work. I get that
a
you were
lot.
definitely quite hard work.
It was effortless for you, wasn't it?
So yeah, I suppose what it is maybe you have like a high emotional intelligence.
Well, I'm glad I've got something.
I've always thought that.
Never done an IQ test, but yeah, I think that there's a lot. You have to be able to relate to people for sure, but I mean also, you know, certainly with the way that my career has changed, you know, I started in print, very quickly moved into working online, so doing social media, and then it was a trajectory that I didn't see it coming. I didn't think I would ever work in television. I didn't plan to work in television, but from that initial step, I was offered a job working in Edinburgh as a reporter and a presenter. And I mean, I remember the day that I'd only been working there for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I had no experience in presenting. It's not what I studied at university. And they said to me, we want you to present the news tonight. Is that okay? And I said, yeah, perfect, absolutely, no problem. And I went to the toilet and I was sick. Oh, and I phoned my mum and I was like, Mum, can I do it? And you just had I had this horrible feeling that I think we're quite sick in a way, that, you know, as people that in this industry, that once you get a taste for that, once you get that feeling of, not that it's sick, just once it's turning into a different show. once you get that real taste of you know, overcoming something and overcoming fear, and learning how to cope with the stress of a situation like that, or the pressure, you start to relish it. You start to want more of it, and you know, it's all of it has been done. The experiences that I've had since have been incredible, and it really teaches you to overcome your fears. You know, it might be the scariest thing in the world, but it's always better to have done it than to regret not doing it.
Well, I was going to say, I'm surprised to hear that you've had so little presenting experience, because you do come across with a lot of confidence and a lot of you're very comfortable in front of the camera. But it must be because you know, it was a baptism by fire, where possibly, can you imagine being like asked to, like, first presenting job is presenting news, like, so it's not about like, you know, just being yourself or whatever, it's about having to read the news and like judge the tone and everything. So
I mean, Jason, I messed up a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, there were times where,
well, like the fact that that was
just a massive
that
learning
was the
curve.
first thing you did.
Yeah.
So like I can imagine all the other kind of challenges that came your way, that gave you a confidence that, you know, you couldn't buy that kind of confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was really fortunate that I had we worked in such a close team, and people, I have to mention Andrea Breimer especially. She is a presenter in Aberdeen, and when she saw that I was keen to kind of progress into broadcast, and the reason that I liked it, that I enjoyed it, is when you're working online, you're seeing people run about you, and you're seeing like deadlines, and people are shouting, and it looks like very well organised chaos, but chaos that's fun, and it just, there was an energy that went with it that I was really drawn to. And I said to her, God, I'd love to do something. She'd seen that I'd started coming into work weekends. You know, you do it again off your own back. You kind of decide that you're going to take your free time, spend your free time learning. I was very lucky that the camera operatives showed me how to work the cameras, and I was even staying late just to do the auto cue, just making yourself available, making yourself useful. So she came to me one day and said, you know, there's not any formal training at the moment here, so I want to help you. And she was brilliant. She took me into this new studio. She gave me scripts, she taught me how to read, she taught me how to present, and within 2 or 3 weeks I was then thinking, I'm just going to start applying for a few jobs. And it took a while, it took maybe a few months, but I was really, really lucky and very grateful that, you know, the opportunity did arise. But I mean, as I say, two weeks into that, I was being asked to present, and I hadn't done a thing before. And you just have to pretend. I think a lot of it is having the guts to just think, I might as well. You know, what's the worst that can happen? And actually, I don't think there's quite a lot that can happen when you really sit and think about it.
Didn't happen.
No, I mean, the thing is, you do mess up, and I think one of the hardest things when you do is learning to get over it, and learning to very quickly recover and not let it affect, well, first of all, the rest of the show, or not. But then, you know, even afterwards, you have those times of reflection, and the moments where you're watching yourself back and you cringe and you just think, God, what an idiot I am! I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe that I did that, or. But there's just, I mean, you just have to recover and have a lot of inner confidence that, you know, no one will remember, but people do remember. Colleagues quite often remind me of things that.
It's a learning curve.
It's a great team.
But you need people like that.
Oh, absolutely, to keep you grounded, I think. But we love sharing the stories as well. I mean, when it goes wrong, that's kind of when you do have such a laugh behind the scenes.
So what would be a couple of examples of things that have gone wrong?
Oh, I can give you more than a couple.
Yeah.
So getting ready to go on for one of our political programmes, we would never know our exact hit time, so the exact time that we're going to go on air, because it was flexible, and we knew roughly the time that we'd be on air, but we didn't know the exact. So I would be getting myself ready, going into the studio to plug my earpiece in, and I thought I had about 5 minutes to go. That's generally the rough time. You've got, you know, PAs and stuff that tell you roughly how long you've got. And I'd started doing my makeup, and I had a little bit of, I've done blusher on one cheek and put it down, plugged in my earpiece, and all I heard was, now we're crossing to the newsroom where you are, and the music, the sting kicked in, and I just had to grab the makeup and fling it on the floor and sit up, and kind of the first thing that anyone would have seen was me kind of doing that to all the makeup and a clatter, and then sort of sitting up, and then we had a clip to play out, and it was quite a short bulletin. We had a clip to play out, and in the clip, it was maybe 20 seconds. The director said to me, "Looking a bit stupid, Zara, you've only got blusher on one cheek." And so I thought, God, what am I going to do? I can't reach it. So I just started slapping myself, thinking,
Wow.
I'll just to
Yeah.
Now I can see why your colleagues keep bringing it up.
Yeah. And the clip had been miscounted, and it was short. So then again, we come off the back of the clip, we crash out of the clip and come back to me slapping myself.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a good
It
moment.
feels like you might be used as a case study in university.
What not to do?
Yeah, exactly. This
Well, I
could
make sure I'd always
this is
done my
the
makeup
worst that
before.
could happen.
Yeah. Oh, but there's plenty, and I think that's the fun in it. And you know that, for viewers that's going to be something that they remember. It'll be all right on the night. I mean, that's a program that has survived the test. It's the test of time because of how many of these clips exist. And I'm just glad that I can contribute to that.
Like a badge of honour.
Do you think so?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Definitely.
Got a whole brownie patch of honour.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose a major part of that is managing your own ego, because
Have you noticed it since we've?
You're very humble, Zara. I'll give you that. But I suppose when you're that aware of how you're coming across, you have to just act with I suppose professionalism.
I think
and if things go wrong, you just need to embrace it and not allow it to affect you personally.
Yeah, I mean, there's also trying to be yourself, and you realise that you just have to be yourself as much as you can. There's no point in trying to pretend, but sometimes you just want to make a little comment like, oh, I think I just can't back into mode. And that's what I mean about not letting things affect you. You just have to kind of move on.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah. Awesome.
We're doing all right on the bloopers so far, though, aren't we?
This is going to be an hour and a half of
outtakes.
Content.
So it would be really good to hear about, I suppose, your sort of personal values. The things that you actually, the things that you want to align yourself with, the things that you believe in.
Wow. Now, Jason and I had a chat about God.
Okay, interesting.
Some time ago, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I don't think that's kind of grounds that we want to go down.
Wasn't that bad.
Certainly not
you a
a
religious
conversation
person?
I would like to repeat. No, I'm not at all. But I do think that it certainly has its place, and I very much respect people's choice to follow their own beliefs. I guess every religion has pillars to base themselves on, or a foundation, and my values. I do very much believe my main aim is to be happy, and I think that my whole life has been governed by that. If I'm not happy, then I make decisions to be happy and make changes that will enable that, which obviously has led to some standout moments, like going to Bermuda instead of getting a proper job, or up sticks and leaving. I lived in Spain for a while, or just I just think that life can be too short, and unfortunately I've been in a position where I have lost friends my own age, and I see that life is very short, and you really must grab not just every opportunity, but just everything and every person that comes in and offers you love or opens up their heart to you. It's just so important. And life is simple, really. I think we make it complicated sometimes, but it really is very simple. I spend a lot of time with my mum. I spend an hour on the phone to my mum every day. That's a very important part. Very important part of my life. But yeah, she takes me on holiday. I have to keep her happy.
Yeah, I think we could all do better with our mum, couldn't we? I know I could.
Oh, she's great. She's a very good chat. And actually, it's my mum that's been the kind of biggest driving force in my life. There's bits of advice that she gave me growing up that I hope if I ever have kids that I'll pass on to them. I think sometimes she regrets some of what she's advised me to do. When I was very young, she said to me, don't ever wait for anyone. If you want to do something, you need to, if you decide you want to do it, you have to go ahead and do it. Make your plans and go. And that has meant, every time I have been away traveling, when I moved to Bermuda, when I moved to Spain, when I moved to New York, I wasn't scared to do it alone. And it's something that I'm never scared of either being alone or doing anything alone. I feel very comfortable and very confident to move to places and to meet people, because I don't know why, I'm just very lucky that I've met such great people, and I've really made friends for life anywhere I've gone. So I'm just very fortunate in that way. But she also said to me, which is the one that I think she regrets, she said, there's going to be times in your life where everyone around you tells you you're wrong. You know, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. Your father's going to tell you you're wrong, your friends, society. But if you firmly believe that it's right for you, you have to do it. And I'd say that I can think of about 5 instances where she's definitely regretted that. For sure. Yeah, there's been times.
She's right. I mean, like what you're saying, she might regret in terms of, you know, the effect that it's had on other people, but you have to do what's right for you. And I think at the end of the day, everyone around you, even if at the time they maybe felt like you were being selfish or whatever, they'll say exactly the same thing. Like, you have to do what's right for you. I think we all have to ultimately. But to kind of channel this in a certain direction, to come back to our conversation about God in a bar, which tells you how deep it was. I was really interested in how your thoughts on that subject had been shaped by your upbringing, and I wondered if you wanted to share that.
Oh, because, you know, I look a little bit foreign.
I'm glad you said it.
Jason?
What is your background?
So my mum is a little ginger Glaswegian.
Right, okay.
And my dad's Pakistani.
Okay.
So we were very much brought up as Muslims when we were, younger.
So I'm just remembering a joke.
I don't think we're going to go there. We're not going to go there.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. My mum went to Pakistan to marry my dad, and she converted to Islam. So we were brought up as Muslims. And it was, I think for me, it was a very interesting experience seeing how, you know, I got in many ways the best of both cultures, but also I think the worst. And you see how difficult it is in interracial marriages, especially where there's such a difference in the culture. You know, there was a lot of negotiating and navigating, and, you know, it was new to them too. So I think they had to find their feet with it all, and, you know, at different stages there would be different issues that, you know, I wasn't allowed to do anything I felt when I was younger. You know, I wasn't allowed to wear what I wanted. I wasn't allowed to, you know, loads of my friends would go and just hang about, you know, in the streets having a chat, and my dad was very adamant that I went somewhere with a purpose, that I wasn't loitering. I wasn't really allowed to go to school dances much because there were boys there. You know, my father is he is just such an amazing man, and he has worked so hard to get to where he has. He was essentially brought up in a very small village in Pakistan. And both my parents are exceptional. You know, they've really shown how you can break away from not just poverty, and how you can break that cycle, but really smash all expectations that people around you have for what you should do in life. You know, from growing up in this, you know, essentially milking buffalo in a village in Pakistan. And one of the strangest things about my dad, I think, is that when he moved to this country, he had to choose a birthday because he didn't actually know when his birthday was. So we don't. So every year we sing happy birthday to him, and it's not his birthday. And I have to say, I love him to bits, but he still hasn't learned the words to happy birthday. And he sings it 5 times a year at least. So it's this kind of very dysfunctional moment where you pause for reflection and go, wow, it's not your birthday. You don't know that. I mean, it's just a very odd situation really to have with him. But yeah, he grew up in a village, and very quickly sort of moved to military college. He was very lucky that he was able to go to military college there, and he was a bank manager, he was a boxer. He decided to leave Pakistan and come here, which is when he met my mum. And I think she sold her car to him. He started a car firm, which he still has. And she sold her car. She'd been traveling around Europe and returned to sell this vehicle to my dad. He came back the next day, and she said to him, you know, the deal's done. And she was very typically Glaswegian, you know, you kind of get your money back. And he was like, well, you know, I'm just kind of wanting to take you out. So that's how they met. And I guess the rest, as they say, is history. But my mum, she's constantly reminding me that she's from the slums of Glasgow. And, you know, she really was. She was from the east end of Glasgow. And, you know, when she tells me some of how her life, the lifestyle and what they had growing up, you know, nothing. They didn't have a lot at all, and her friends and family, people around her were getting married, and, you know, that was the expectation. back then, you know, in the 50s, you get married, you settle down, and she was forced to leave school at 16, but she was very, very competent. She was the top of her class, and she had big aspirations, and she decided that it wasn't, if she was going to have to leave school and get a job, to hell with it, she was joining the army. And she went to travel all around the world with the army, and she had a great life, and she just made her own decisions. She was very much her own woman, and she changed her own destiny, she changed her path. But she does like to remind me from time to time, just remember, you know, I'm for the slums of Glasgow.
What an eclectic mix.
Yeah.
What also, like, that came from the conversation that we had there, it was quite hard for me personally to understand what your relationship with Islam was, in that certain aspects of it you sounded quite resentful. Like you told me an anecdote about just how you felt, maybe, I don't know, just certain incidents as a woman, you felt that you weren't treated with the same respect as a man. But also, I don't feel like you are entirely dismissive of it. It seems to me that you have maybe taken something from it, and so I'm just really interested to hear how you feel maybe you are influenced by it.
I think there's a huge problem in the way that Islam is being taught, and I think that needs to be looked at, especially in this country, how what the accessibility is. And I think quite often with any religion, culture is confused with religion. And you know, my experiences weren't always positive because of that. That was the reason why I didn't have always the best experiences, because the education wasn't there. And you know, my father did a great job in setting that right. But we were sent to mosque in Glasgow when we were very, very young, to learn how to read the Quran. And I still find this quite funny that, for example, if you give me the Quran or some Arabic writing, I can sound it out. So I learned my alif, be, pes, my ABCs. I learned how to sound out these letters, but I have no understanding of the meaning behind them. And to me, I always found that very strange that we didn't just read it in English, so that we understood what the meaning was, rather than just being able to recite it in Arabic. So I think that's failing us. That fails anyone that wants to learn about their religion and that is supposed to have a connection with it, because I felt so completely distant from it. I just didn't feel a connection at all to what I was learning. And you know, unfortunately, the people who were teaching it weren't always the nicest. I don't think that is the case. That's certainly not the case throughout. You know, I just had that was just one of my experiences. But overall, you know, there's such a love with Islam. There's such a love there, and it is about, you know, it is about peace. You know, it's there to offer support and solace and comfort for people at times when they need it. And you know, we lived in Pakistan briefly when I was much younger, and celebrating Eid in Pakistan, I just can't tell you how much of a, you know, it brings people together. There was the smell of roses everywhere. They put rose garlands up everywhere. There'd just be, you know, a big feast, and there's all these beautiful memories attached to it, very much in the same way that Christians would associate with Christmas. You know, it's something that's clearly very topical now. You know, people look at Islam and don't really know what it is, and I think there's a lot of people that don't understand what it is. I am thankful for, and I appreciate my connection to it. But I would say that religion doesn't play a huge role in my life. I think you know, I understand the fundamentals of any religion and the basics, the pillars, you know, of any religion, and that is to be a good person. And it's not very difficult to, you know, determine what that is and what you should do to achieve that. So you just try and live your life like that, don't you?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Don't piss anyone off too much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the perception of Muslim culture has been soiled quite badly by the media and by the actions of a very small minority, and that's used as a reflection of how the culture is. somehow, which I just think is kind of obscene. One of the things that I'm interested to speak to you about actually is the news. So I've seen you reading the news. The news, this is probably my opinion, but it doesn't strike me as being the 5 or 10 top stories based on this is the information that you should know, as opposed to like these are kind of more negative headlines or sound bites to kind of draw viewers in. So what are your views on what the news is, the function of the news?
Oh, the function of it. I mean, I think what you're essentially saying there is, are we giving people what they want, or are we...
Or what they need. Mm-hmm.
Or are we dictated to... It's essentially, are we dictated to by them, or are they dictating the news to us?
Yeah. And
it's funny because we had a conversation earlier today about the Daily Mail, because there was a story that enraged me. It was, I think the headline, or the caption, it kind of went something like, woman who opens third business, and then in brackets, and has very understanding husband, tells women how to smash through the glass ceiling. And I just thought, what you've just done there is you're masquerading as if you're pro-feminism, and really what you've said. I mean, would you ever say to a man, man who starts third business and has really understanding wife? I mean, yeah, damn right, he would have a very understanding wife.
Yeah,
but I mean,
all about that.
don't they all? But I just, what is the news? I think it depends on what industry you're working in. I mean, there's hard news, and then there's entertainment news, and I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a problem, but mentioning Brad and Angelina, you can't escape from it. The fact that the news broke yesterday, I don't want my brain cells to be taken up with any information about this, in the same way that when I hear football news, I think, gosh, I really don't want, and I'll remember stuff I don't want to, I don't enjoy it. But you can't escape it. 10 minutes on BBC Breakfast this morning about Brad and Angelina's split, and you have to question. I think it's quite right to question, and in actual fact, people need to question more, is this news? Not enough people do ask that question. I'd say that, when you're looking at, as a journalist, and you're looking at stories, or you're looking even on Twitter or on Facebook, or, on the wires, so what news agencies put up, and you're searching for something to put in either a programme or something to write up, you've got two I certainly have two brains. Or two approaches, and one of them is very much what is going to be something that the editor is going to go for, that is just, what is the absolute, what, of course we're going to put that in the programme, that is news, and what is going to be over and above that. I mean, there's stuff that I might not want to put in, that I think, I remember doing something about a beauty queen once, and it was just, when the way that the story was unfolding, and I thought, God, I want to help enrich people's lives. You do worry about what you put out there, you do worry about how that's then affecting people, and actually how it's changing society and shaping society. But it is a very hard balance to strike between this is news, this is something that people want to hear, but then in giving them this, it might have an adverse reaction. There might be, I mean, let's look to America at the moment. Then there's the trouble between police and protesters there, the black protesters, minority groups. It is delivering that news, knowing that it's going to fuel then further demonstrations. Immediately, is that then, is it your responsibility not to show it? Of course not. If anything, it's more of a responsibility. You have more responsibility to show it. It's a constant battle, Elliot. You're kind of going. I mean, when you know what news is, because news is what people want to talk about. What is going to interest the majority of the population, and what are the majority of people going to want to hear about? And that's essentially what news is. There's people who, like the Daily Mail, they will, capitalise on, I think that, I shouldn't really say the Daily Mail. Some some publications,
Yes,
let's say.
Daily Mail.
For real. Specifically the Daily Mail.
Let's keep it real.
Some publications, I think, capitalise more on sort of scaremongering or sensationalising because they know that it's going to get more of a response. But when you're working for certainly a broadcaster, there is, you know for a fact that, I mean, we don't all liaise. It's not like Channel 4 and STV and ITN. We don't all have a meeting and decide what we're going to cover. And, you know, we all just know what the stories are, and that's from experience. You know, what are the biggest, what are people going to want to talk about the most?
And at what level are they decided? Who makes the decisions on the things that are going to be aired?
Well, it would always be the producer of the programme.
Okay.
So that essentially comes down to who the executive producer is, who the producer is. I think I have a lot of experience working in a very small team, and there's a lot of input there from everyone, and that's something that we need because you know, when you work in a small team, not one person can have a monopoly on ideas. It has to be a collective process. It really enriches it. I mean, news is very different to entertainment. I mean, I worked in news a couple of years ago, and for a few years. So my experience with that is very different to my experience now. And actually, the whole process of storytelling is very different. And essentially, that's what I am. I'm a storyteller. You know, whether you're telling a news story or something for a family program or something for a late night program, you have to adapt how you're telling the story. And again, that's based on your audience. So what is the most interesting story to them? You know, we would never on a late night show discuss what's been in the news that day unless it was something incredibly compelling. You know, unless it was something that we just decided would, you know, we absolutely had to touch. You know, I was very fortunate within my time at news. I worked during the referendum, so that was, I mean, that was an experience. That was an incredibly valuable landmark, really. That time, I'm so happy and so proud to have been part of delivering our coverage during that time. But equally, I was working the night the Clutha helicopter crashed.
Wow,
and having to reshift the programme because we had about 20 minutes to go on air and decide whether we could verify anything, what we could say. We had no pictures. You know, it was very much, how are we going to go with this, and trying to write the scripts very quickly and decide how much of the programme to dedicate to it, what to say, what had been verified. So there's that, when you get stories like that to work on, and I think immediately when they drop, you know that you're making history, you're part of history, you're there for that, and actually you feel a real sense of responsibility because you know that you're going to be delivering this news to people for the first time. And that feeling that you felt when you saw, you know, it was a picture or something on Twitter that we'd seen, and it looked like a helicopter crashed into a bar, and it was, you know, first of all, that surely that can't be right, and then, you know, you start thinking how many people where hopefully no one was killed. I mean, it's you have that initial shock, and knowing that you're going to be delivering then the news, people are going to remember that, and, you know, you need to make sure it's accurate. You need to make sure you're giving people the right information, and it's a huge sense of responsibility doing news. So I was very fortunate within my time working there that I had, you know, it was an interesting point in history. So that was really valuable. But then going from, you know, I've already told you some of the background that I have in human rights, and you know, very different now to what I'm doing at the moment, currently working in entertainment. So you know, whereas I would have said in the past, proud moments would have been, you know, working in the Scottish Human Rights Commission or doing stuff for the Innocence Project, and now, you know, it's trying to speak to Michael Fassbender when he's here in town, or, you know, picking up.
Jason Auld.
Sorry, I forgot about you, Jason.
Obviously,
of course.
But I think you've both touched on a really interesting point, which is it the news's role to just report, or is it the news's role to kind of dictate the agenda? And I think, regardless of what you think about the Daily Mail's opinions, I think they very much try and force an opinion on people. I think more often than not, it's people that agree with their opinion that read the paper. But I don't necessarily think, and I'll probably get shot when I walk out the door or something, or involved in a horrible accident, but at least we've got this on record, that I don't think that the Daily Mail and other places like it are particularly interested in just reporting the facts. What I'm quite interested to hear from you is, how do you think that social media and maybe, you know, empowering individuals like this show has affected the more kind of traditional media from someone who's in the thick of it?
Oh, I mean, it's completely transformed storytelling, the news, how we deliver the news. I mean, it gets to the point where we know what times to release tweets and what time people are going to be, you know, when people are on their way home, they're more likely to see something. But also, it has, you know, when I first started writing news pieces, we had several paragraphs. You know, we could easily write 500, 700 words. People were reading that online. It's just condensing now to the point where we're giving very concise information. Maybe you've only got 2 or 3 paragraphs to tell a story now. You know, you'll send a tweet and people will click on it, and you know, it brings them to an article that is in much shorter form than it was before. I think that people's appetite for the news is growing, and I think their patience or the time that they have for each story is certainly decreasing. So I mean, it's so effective because it's essentially how we market the stories that we have and how we market, you know, our shows. That's, you were asking how it's sort of challenging longer form media.
I think just how it's influenced it. Like, as you say, I mean, this is something we've spoken about. You know, I've got no attention span whatsoever, as I'm sure you can tell, probably with ADHD child. But at the same time, I do mourn.
Distracted by the lights.
I know, where? I do mourn the fact that people might say, "Oh, I don't want to read that article because it's too long," or "I don't want to watch that interview because it's too long." Because I think, you know, in-depth conversations and in-depth exploration into a subject has more value than just, you know, a quick. And I mean, I suffer from this too. Like, in the industry that I'm involved in, people just want to see, like, almost like the highlights of what you can do. When you know, when you take that out of context, it kind of it makes for very kind of vapid, empty stories. And I was just interested, you know, does traditional media feel like they have to compete with, say, like YouTube, because obviously there's people on YouTube that are getting more views than some primetime TV shows and things like that. And I just wondered, having, you know, been involved in it, how things are changing. And
I think when something does well on social media, you can very quickly see the impact that it will have on TV or online or, you know, on our websites. It's the best place to gauge how well we're doing, essentially. So if we take either a news story or we take a family story, or, you know, anything gets posted that's a clip from the show or a preview of the show, and we see, you know, it going to thousands of viewers or thousands of clicks, then we know that we're onto something with it, because if people are watching it there in those numbers, they will tune in to watch it with us. And actually that's true. I mean, it's true across everything that we do. You know, there's a synergy with, I mean, I don't want to be honest, I don't want to speak too much just about where I'm currently working. I think that this is more general. It's something I was at the television festival during the Fringe, and the executive producer for the Late Late Show was there with his social media executive, and they were discussing the very similar things, because carpool karaoke, it's, you know, that's the platform is on YouTube. You know, that's where they post them. So people aren't even necessarily tuning in for the whole show, but they've got these little segments that they know work very well online, and so they've been posting them, and that's where they see the figures, and that's where they start to, you know, realize how they can. It's like a benchmark, really, isn't it, for programs or for what you've done, how many viewers, and you can very quickly tell. You know, in TV, it's not always easy to see exactly, you know, what viewing figures are. And, you know, there's all sorts of discussions you can have around, you know, the boxes and the figures that they're releasing and how, you know, Ofcom or right. It's just, you can have that discussion, and there's always a kind of grey area. There's no escaping the hard facts and the hard figures that you're getting online when you see those clicks and you see those numbers. You know if something's gone viral, you know, you can see instantly, and it has the potential to do it in such a short time.
Absolutely.
You want to go viral?
That's why I'm here.
What do you think are the things that make viral content viral?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
That's why I asked it.
You're good at this, Elliot.
Not his first rodeo.
Oh God, it can be, I think, first and foremost, it has to be, I mean, I would say entertaining, or, yeah, I'd say for the industry that I work in, it has to be entertaining. It can be stupid, it can make no sense, but equally if it's something compelling, you know, if it's something that, you know, is maybe very serious, that's exposing something, or, you know, that's exposing wrongdoing, or but it still has that entertainment element that people are going to be, you know, compelled to watch it. You know, we've often discussed how, you know, we could create something to go viral, and I actually think it is an exercise that they give quite often in journalism school, just to, or, you know, when you're at university and you're studying, to try and create, it's a thing that they do, try and create a viral content, a viral video. And it's a competition then, because whoever gets the most views obviously is considered to have won, essentially. And people do all sorts of things, and they try and, you know, bloopers, they try and capture someone falling or doing something. Sometimes it's the silliest of things, or cat videos, or, you know,
grumpy cat.
Yeah, grumpy cat.
Jeez.
What a guy.
Big cat videos, yeah.
Yeah, legends.
People seem to relish them.
Yeah, or like babies doing stupid things.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I need to get a baby in my video. But
I think we could work on like a fishbowl with lots of various ideas, or like octopus, and just get random things and pick them all out and
from my
try and
point of
create
view,
something.
like, so obviously I'm in a position where I want to get as many,
of course,
eyes on my product.
Yeah.
It sounds like an innuendo, but it isn't. I want to get as many eyes on what I want to make, and it comes back round to, do I make something that I want to make, or do I make something that people want to see? And you know, I think it ties in quite nicely to what you're saying about, and what we were saying before about the news, is are people making the news, or are people just reporting the news? So I think the analogy you put there was like someone's trying to catch someone falling over. Well, is it not much easier to just pretend to fall over and film that, and then put it on and go, oh, I caught this guy? And I think it's created a kind of culture of skepticism now, where people watch things and they go, like I was involved in a piece, and they were like, we don't want you to do that because people might think they want to shoot it in one shot, because they were like, if we cut it, people might think that it's special effects. And so I think it's created that kind of weird
the first thing I've always been taught, and we all work by, is that your sole job is to report the news. You know, we work with integrity, we work to, you know, a very specific agenda that is not set by anyone but the news, and or the viewers, and it's very much, who are our viewers and what to them is news. And, you know, you see it when you work closely with journalists from when I was studying, you know, when I was learning from tutors and lecturers, and you learn that there's not always enough time. There's not a greater plan. There's not, you know, It's not like that.
They are real.
But I mean, people will quite often comment afterwards and say, oh, there was clearly an agenda there, and this is why they asked that question. That's why. And you're like, I was there with the reporter. I know exactly when we were given this job, and actually, you know, formulating the questions ourselves on the way there. And, you know, it's just, there's no agenda. It's not, we don't sit and come up with, you know, there's no big evil plan. It's quite often a lot more straightforward. I think that maybe this isn't going to be a popular view, but I certainly know that I'm very lucky and very fortunate. I have been taught by some of the best journalists They've taught me how to research, how to confirm stories, how to verify, and unless we have that, then we have nothing. We would crumble. We also have Ofcom's there to regulate us for that very reason. If viewers have complaints, then they complain.
And is that not the main it's the main criticisms I hear from traditional media, is that it is far more regulated than social media. So because everyone likes to think that social media is all of a sudden putting the power in everyone's hands, but the flip side of that is that they don't necessarily have to have a really strong kind of reference or evidence for their case.
There's still a huge responsibility though with social media, and when I think individually and collectively or as an organisation, certainly for the organisations that I've worked for, there's a lot of emphasis on that responsibility, whether it be removing racist comments that are being made, or making sure that we are very aware of what is being posted on our pages. We do that, but also individually, I'm very conscious of not wanting to promote or people's opinions unless or truths that are, or lies masquerading as truths. Anything that's been unconfirmed, it's not something that I'm comfortable reposting. And certainly, at the moment, it's an interesting time to see how Donald Trump is. People seem to be opening up about American politics in a way that they didn't before, and feeling like it's okay to comment and to share quite extreme views at times about individuals and about whole groups. So even some of that, I don't need to get involved in that. I try and kind of keep away from it, because on social media, when you open yourself up to that, you open the door to a whole number of people, to the world really. When you post something on social media, you're just opening that door to the world.
So when you're doing work as a journalist then, are you reporting it from the perspective of, this is me writing my opinion on something? Are you doing it through the lens of, I suppose, the network, this is what their opinion would be, or are you doing it just completely impartially, these are the facts?
Well, if it's news, it's news. There's no opinion, and we are always taught we have no opinion in news. Okay. It's what the facts are. So, I mean, if you're writing a news story or writing a news script, it's there's top line stuff. Very quickly how to break up the most important information that people need to know. You should really be able to tell your story in the first line, and then add in information. But if you're asked to do an opinion piece, if it is either a news feature or something else, I mean, generally reporters wouldn't be asked to go on camera and deliver a news feature with their opinions. We would seek other people, talking heads, to do that. But in written form, we've been asked to do opinion pieces before, and certainly that's when they're asking you, because they like your views or they want your personality to tell the story. And that's what we're seeing a lot more of now across newspapers. People are being asked to write opinion pieces about whatever political topics are hot, or whatever is current. They're asked to write, and that is entirely based on the marketability of that individual and how entertaining their opinions are going to be, and how much that is going to reflect whatever the paper want that to reflect. So I think that there is a danger there, where potentially when you do have an opinion, you're going to swing for either side. But if you're good at it, and depending on what the paper wants, I mean, the papers will tell you what they want from you. If they want you to, they know that you have a known opinion for or against something, they'll ask you to do it for that reason. But as a journalist, if I was asked to do something like that, I think I would be a fence sitter. I'd be devil's advocate constantly. So and that would be your job, is to play devil's advocate. And you saw a lot of that during the referendum. People, David Torrance was very good during the referendum at giving a bit of both, but based on, we all knew what he was voting for, but he was very unbiased.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's important.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. That's I really appreciate your honesty in answering a lot of those. We've probably done that sort of part, the kind of probing, if you will.
There's definitely some probing.
So yeah, it would be good to move on and talk. I'm interested to hear your views on maybe Scottish culture and having been a sort of West Coaster for some of your life, and now working and being on the East Coast, the sort of divide between that and how you see that.
Bear in mind, this is Edinburgh real.
This is Edinburgh. This is
Not
Edinburgh
Glasgow real.
Right. Careful what you say.
Yeah, you do realise you're speaking to a Ouija right now.
Oh yeah, we realised.
I moved here for uni when I was 18 and lived here for 4 years, and then went back to Glasgow for a number of years before moving back here again 3 years ago. So, I mean, I've spent a lot of my adult life here, and actually, I can't really. This is awful that I'm admitting to this, but I get lost a lot when I go back to Glasgow. Okay. Things change. You don't recognise streets. You start trying to drive down a one way. It's just. This is what is familiar to me. Edinburgh has become home to me, specifically Leith. I live in Leith and I have done for a number of years, and I just love. It's a very genuine place, and it shocks the hell out of me every day. Every time I go out the door, I'm met by some very, very open individuals. People are very, very happy to approach you. And maybe, that is why I enjoy it so much, because that reminds me of Glasgow. I love that area in Edinburgh, because people do feel like they can be very open and come and talk to you. And, you don't always hear a lot of diversity down in Leith. But what I mean by that is there's a lot of Leithers in Leith. When you get into the city centre, as much as I love it, hearing all the accents and seeing, people from all over the world, you go down to Leith and you're like, gosh, there's lots of Leithers in Leith. It makes sense. Yeah. I just love I love how, I love that part of the city, and I love the lifestyle here. I feel like we are quite healthy. I'm certainly a lot healthier than I am when I go back to Glasgow, but maybe that's because I go back to Glasgow for nights out.
Okay.
So, it's the
nights
obligatory.
Out in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Nights out are good in Glasgow.
Yeah, well, we've not been for a night out in Glasgow yet.
Let's do it.
I'm sure it'll end in chips and cheese, though.
Definitely.
That's usually how it ends. I think Edinburgh has certainly become my home now. I miss Glasgow. I miss Glasgow for a whole number of reasons. Mostly my family are still there, so I get back as much as I can, but they're in the north of the city, so I don't really spend a whole lot of time there anymore. I've been fully ingrained in Edinburgh. I've been taken in, and that's me.
Awesome.
I'm an Edinburgher now.
Right
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
Right answer.
Very welcoming city we have. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the walks as well. Like it's breathtaking, and actually, something like I appreciate the walks that you can do in Glasgow. I really enjoy the West End, especially when I lived there. But sometimes you forget to look around this city, and you'll be walking in town. Like sometimes I walk home from work, and it takes about an hour. But I'll be walking down Princess Street, and you'll see the Balmoral, and you'll see the bridges, and it's dark and there's lights, and it's just it reminds you how brilliant a city this is, and actually how breathtaking it is to walk around. When you go abroad, when I go on holiday, I spend a lot of time staring up at the buildings and looking around, and you take everything in, and actually in your own hometown you kind of have this tunnel vision where I'm looking at shoe shops and I'm looking at whatever else I'm passing, and you forget to really take it all in. So I still have these moments though in Edinburgh where I'm walking about and I just think, God, you really don't see that. There's a volcano over there. That's pretty awesome.
I definitely think that there is something unique about this place. Like whenever I speak to people about Edinburgh, it's got a look about it. People always describe it as a very beautiful looking place. And I think that's something that makes it especially sad about the kind of demolition of the old town, which is obviously a World Heritage Site, which has been threatened by World Heritage of relinquishing that because they're knocking down these buildings that maybe people don't think are particularly aesthetically pleasing, but they've got a look about them, and they're being replaced by boxes built with exactly the same materials as everything else, and I think that's really, really sad, because as you say, it looks like no other city on the planet.
Well, a friend of mine came from Canada a few weeks ago, and we were up at St Andrew's Square, and he was looking around at some of the buildings, and he went, God, the architecture here is beautiful. And it just struck me looking around that, you know, they are, you know, 100 years old, and it's not something that you do see in across every city. You know, buildings are being rebuilt, large complexes are being invested in, and you don't appreciate it, do you, until you look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, or realise that you can stand in the main street, and not too far from you there's Portobello, there's a beach down there, but there's a castle up there, there's a volcano over there, there's a beautiful big park in front of you, and you just kind of go, wow, it's an amazing city to live in. But I still can't do the salt and sauce thing.
Oh, chippy sauce is amazing.
Oh.
I love chippy sauce.
Oh, I can't do salt and sauce and that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, not for me. You can keep that.
All right.
Fair
Chips and cheese cancelled.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you one more question that's kind of work related, I suppose, because
Okay.
it would be remiss of me not to ask you this, and then we'll move on and talk about sort of success and similar questions of that ilk. So the question that I have is, what advice would you give to anybody looking to get into working in television?
You have to work your ass off. Be prepared to go in and be a sponge, and sponge up every bit of advice and information that you can. You really need to go in with an open mind, and I'd say the most important thing that I see, we have a lot of people coming in for work experience, and the ones again that stand out are the ones that try to go over and above and make themselves just available. You know, even now I find it really difficult to say no to things, and I think that is just from trying to build a career for so long, where, you know, you just say yes and just hope that, you know, there'll be an opportunity. But you really, I mean, if you want anything is possible when you work hard. And that's actually advice my dad gave me when I was younger. It's his one bit of advice, that you can do anything that you want if you're prepared to work hard enough to get it. And I think that above all, it's hard work that has got me here. It's been late nights, it's been, you know, getting up at the crack of dawn, and, you know, sometimes not getting home until the wee hours, and doing it over and over again, constantly trying to challenge yourself to come up with ideas, to push yourself to do over and above what is expected of you. And it's doing over and above what's expected of you, and building up a skill set that can really help you in a career like this. But people see when you want to work hard, you know, people really identify with it, and they respect you for it when they see how hard you're prepared to work for something.
Cool. That's awesome parental advice as well.
I might have kids one day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
just to pass that on.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. If nothing else.
Well, you pass it on now.
Yeah, it's true, it's true.
Yeah.
But, you know,
it's
if it
so
wasn't
empowering, you know.
If it wasn't for that, you know, I don't want to kind of list off everything, but I've just had some amazing experiences with what I've been able to do. And it's not, you know, I mentioned, like, we get to go and interview celebrities and stuff, and that can be, you know, quite exciting. I know that Jason here in particular really enjoys you and Cameron, who's the presenter or The Late Show.
Oh, right. I thought you were saying you were excited.
No, it's not all about you, Jason. It's also about you and Cameron. No, I've you know, the very first show that I did with the family program that I worked for the very first thing that I did when I worked for a family show was to go swimming with sharks. And, you know, individually, and I try to remember that, you know, whatever I do, it's about building up some good, or contributing some good, but you can't help but think about the bucket list stuff. You know, and I've been really, really lucky that I'm so grateful that I've been able to tick so much of that off with what I've done, and have some just amazing experiences. I was a wildlife reporter last year, and got to learn how to look after all these amazing creatures at the zoo, spending time with, like, the penguins. God, they're amazing, the penguins. You know, and it's just, you don't often get those opportunities, or to, you know, speak to people and hear their stories. And I know I'm rambling now, but, you know, I just thought I'd tell you some of the stuff that I've absolutely
definitely.
loved doing, and that was, you know, being able to do bungee jumps and running a marathon. And I always said if I was going to run a marathon, I want to be able to, you know, cement that in history, because it's probably not going to happen again. So I did, and you know, it's been great for kind of that kind of stuff personally, is kind of seeing little personal goals that I have, like running a marathon, you know, working with animals. The little goals that I have, to be able to tick them off as well, I've found a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah, it's great.
Meeting Jason Auld.
Of course. Absolute career highlight must be.
And meeting you for me.
Oh, thanks. And now meeting you, Elliot. Mutual appreciation.
So much love in this room.
Great. Okay, so I suppose leading on from that, it's quite a nice segue onto this question, and it'll be very interesting to hear what you have to say in response to this. What's your purpose?
I'm going to take a long drink of water for that one.
Nailed it there.
Can you repeat the question? No, I'm joking. My purpose, I think, I mentioned being happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it sounds like such a cliche, but, you know, one thing that's starting to become more to the forefront of my mind is my parents. They're getting a lot older now, and I'd love to be in a position to really look after them, because they've really looked after me. And I think that, you know, that would make me happy. So my purpose changes, but I mean, it's always with the same aim, to just be content, be happy, and make sure that you're giving back and you're not just taking in life. Like, it's really easy to fall into that trap where you're just so focused on what you want to do that you forget that there's a whole world going on. And, you know, I'm very fortunate that, you know, both my parents did come from a deprived background. They grew up in extreme poverty, and I was very lucky that they were then able to offer me a good life. So I was very fortunate. I had a great family. I have very supportive parents, brothers that annoy the life out of me, but that I love wholeheartedly. And not everyone does have that. And I think you are constantly reminded, and especially in this job when you're meeting people all the time. And, you know, we've done a lot of work over the last few years for the STV appeal. You meet children that maybe have more of a lifestyle that reflects what my parents had growing up than myself, and you realise that is what is really important. So be happy, and that means giving back and looking after other people sometimes. And then if I look after my mum, she takes me on holiday, so, you know, it's kind of all it comes back.
Yeah.
It comes
good
back.
Karma. So how do you define success?
I think it's my goals that I set for myself. I always was very good at, you know, every year, in fact, I have a diary. My best friend and I have done this for over a decade. We buy each other the same diary at Christmas. It's kind of a bit of a way of getting out of actually buying each other Christmas presents. Buy our own diaries. But every year my friends and I sit down and write some resolutions, things that we want to achieve. Some of them are very personal, some of them are almost physical, some of them involve, you know, new jobs or getting a house, but others are being more spiritual, for example. There's all these kind of different things. And I think that balance, I think if I'm achieving balance in my life, then I feel very satisfied, or I think that is what success is. Trying to learn from mistakes, and I think I'll maybe define what I mean by balance. I don't want to all be about work in life, but I'm fortunate that I don't think I consider work in the same way that other people do. I really enjoy what I do, so doing it at weekends or doing it in my spare time, it's not work. It's just something fun to do. but having that time, I really do. I mentioned before, I speak to my mum every day, and I really do want that time with my family. I don't want to go, months without seeing them. I don't want to, sacrifice seeing friends all the time for work, or work all the time for seeing friends. If I've had to, cancel on friends a couple of times to pick up stuff for work, I make sure that I do get back to them, and I do try and spend time with them, because life needs a balance, and I really enjoy a lot of balance in my life, not being too extreme in any way. Yeah. So I think that I've had quite a measured life in that sense. That's what success to me. If I can keep a nice balance between all the areas in my life, between friends, family, work, my own private goals. Mm-hmm. I've had a weight goal for a while. I'm not successful in that yet.
What's that goal?
Oh, just to lose some.
Okay.
Not quite there yet, but that's okay.
You look fantastic.
Oh, Jay.
If you could see the full body shot, you'd agree.
Thanks, Jay.
We just might have one of those.
Fantastic.
Hopefully it's been photoshopped. That'd be great.
You alluded to spirituality, which I thought was really interesting. What are the things that you do to tap into that side of you? Is that like yoga, meditation, or is that like psychedelics, or
or see all of the above?
Reading the Quran and not understanding any of it.
Upside down. No. Funny, because I really did have this conversation not too long ago with someone. And actually, there's a gentleman called the Reverend Michael Mayer, and he used to come in to do stuff for a programme of ours. And I said to him at the beginning of this year that a goal of mine was to become a bit more spiritual, and I wasn't really sure what that meant. And I just knew that I'm kind of at a point where I would like to be in touch with a bigger picture. And I think that there is a bigger picture. I just don't really know what that is, and I think that's the best way that I can go about describing it. I don't know if there is a, God, or if there's, if in the way that we see it, or the way that it's described by religion. I don't know if it's defined like that. But I do know that the times I feel most spiritual are when I'm out running. And I think it's something really cathartic. I love running, and it's something that I've only really taken up in the last few years. But I know that there's points where I will just completely disappear, and time just disappears, and you feel like you're outside yourself, and then you kind of snap back into reality. It sounds really bonkers, but that's the only way I can describe it. Time doesn't feel real. And I love thinking that time is not linear at these moments, because you do wonder sort of how in the bigger scale, is this getting to, do we need to roll a joint? I mean, how are we doing?
Well, yeah, of course. Time isn't linear.
Isn't linear.
Time is an illusion.
And it just makes me think that, there's something more to that. But in the same way that, I'm a writer, and I do a lot of art, and I could quite happily sit with a sketchbook at 9 o'clock in the morning, and if I get into that flow, really 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, I won't have moved. I'll have been there for 8, 9 hours and not have realised. I wouldn't have had a drink of water, I wouldn't have eaten, I wouldn't have simply not moved. And there's something exhausting mentally, but there's been times where I sit back and I've finished after 9 hours of sitting sketching to just feel so at peace with myself, exhausted mentally, but really peaceful. And it's just so nice to escape every thought and just have this sort of really intense thing going on with yourself for a while. And I think that is weird, but it's the most spiritual that I've ever felt. I've been to the Vatican, I've been in mosques, I've been to places that people say to me, God, didn't you just feel, so connected? And I kind of go, it's a beautiful building, but no, I didn't. And it's starting to scare me that maybe I don't have that connection. And the only time that I can say that I feel anything like that is when I'm doing art or when I'm running.
I don't think that's weird at all. I think we touched on a very similar topic when I spoke. It wasn't so much centered around spirituality, but the idea of extreme concentration, extreme focus.
And being in flow state.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in a flow state, being involved in something that means that you end up switching off everything else around you is a really, I don't know if I want to use the word spiritual, but powerful, and it's certainly enriching, and as you say, I can't remember the word.
Cathartic.
But yeah, it's for me, I think that's definitely,
and is that what you get
as meditation, I think.
So that you get that on one wheel.
Absolutely. Well, there's certain situations where you do need extreme focus, because if you're not 100% present, it can be the difference, not necessarily between life and death. That sounds really extreme, but the difference between something bad happening and something not. And so when you're in that position, that's kind of why a lot of people within extreme sports chase the situations where there's such dire consequences, so they need to be focused. But when you're running, it's exactly the same, and I think it would be, well, not exactly the same, unless you're...
Do you have these moments, Elliot? Do you have moments where you feel like you disappear?
That's a really good question. There's nothing that immediately comes to mind that I think when I do X, it might be around maybe sort of sporting activities, perhaps, when you kind of get into that flow state. In terms of the feeling of like a oneness or a connectedness or that sort of thing, I can't say that's anything that I've kind of consciously experienced, but it's certainly something that it's something that I want to experiment with.
We'll need to get you up on one wheel. Maybe that's how.
Well, I'm not sure that's the solution.
Sure, it says something about that in the Quran. I
I mean, that's kind of close to blasphemy, so just be careful.
I think I'm going to be struck down anyway at some point. So.
Yeah, I mean, about myself, and not to monopolise the conversation, but I feel as though I've always been quite out of touch with my spiritual side.
Yeah.
I've always been very logic-based and seeing things as black and white and very fact-based. And I've come to appreciate that, life's many shades of grey, and it's appreciating different perspectives and stuff as well. So yeah, that's something, meditation, something that I want to get into.
Do you do anything creative? I mean, obviously this is very creative.
Yeah, I mean, generally, no, it would be my honest answer, not especially.
Even when you're sitting editing these videos, you don't sort of have moments where you can just, you're editing and you get really focused on it and you feel like you could spend hours and they would feel like minutes? I'm not sure. It feels as though I'm probably going through the motions more than it feels that I'm actually So you're seeing a lot, you're almost like number crunching, going this bit goes here and then it's 2 minutes to,
Well, I think it's really interesting
methodical.
You're saying that you feel like you're out of touch with it, and I think, not to make the biggest name drop in the history of
go for it.
But I was having a conversation with Russell Brand
about not the Russell Brand.
Seriously, because I went to one of these shows. It was a very intimate gig, and anyway, we started having a conversation, and he was talking about the fact that the reason a lot of the positive things that come with the word spirituality is kind of used by people who are commonly like atheists or agnostic, but that see the value of something a little bit deeper than just the basic kind of materialist approach to life. And we were having a conversation about how do you inject those kind of aspects of religion into society without the kind of dogma and the doctrine. And I think it's really interesting to hear that you feel that you are removed from that, and how we can get people to say, I don't believe in God, I don't follow these 1,000-year-old Middle Eastern traditions, but there is something missing, and I want to find out what that is. So
I think there's a real danger in life of having too much of a strong view on something. I think that, and this is just, again, my own personal views on it, I think that it's really beneficial to be able to flex your views and your opinions.
Definitely.
And be open to really anything. Because, we know so little about the world in which we live, the universe, everything. So to make these kind of bold assessments or hypotheses based on really very little information it's just short-sighted.
So to just steer this in slightly a similar but
who's doing the interview
well, no,
here,
just
Zara?
I thought I was offered.
You work on TV.
I I would offer a topic, because it's something that does interest me to talk about.
Okay.
The supernatural.
Yep.
And
Here we go.
so yeah, I'm going to go there. Okay. So what are your views?
Okay. I mean, in respect to what then? Of there being.
So something.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, one of the things that I watched recently, Stranger Things.
I've heard of it.
And the concept of like an upside down. I mean, and parallel universes.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. I
Well,
firmly
because until
believe in the
until
possibility.
probably about 2, and I think that this is on a similar line of spirituality, because for years, I mean, I would have, if someone said to me that they'd seen a spirit or a ghost or whatever you want to call it, I would have thought they were absolutely nuts, and I was not open to it in the slightest, and my mind was completely closed off. And I moved, this was maybe 7 years ago, I moved into a flat with my best friend in Glasgow on West Princess Street, and things didn't seem right. I think that's the only way of describing it. We all had a sensation of things walking past us or going past the door, but you put it down to all manner of things, and things would go missing and then reappear in very odd places. Or one day I walked past. This is you going crazy?
No, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. Yeah.
I think you're crazy.
I feel yeah. Well, this is the thing. I think when stuff happens, people are very good at explaining it away, and usually there's an explanation for everything. I can't believe I'm going to tell this anecdote, because I will seem like an absolute nut job.
Is this an exclusive?
Not exactly, but no, certainly things weren't right when we moved into the flat, and I think that we all wondered whether it was just because it was quite an old house, and I was very, very forthcoming, and I was the driving force behind the explanations. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. When the TV just turned on and it wasn't plugged in, maybe there's electricity stored in. Also, it was.
Why was your TV not plugged in?
I mean, it's very important, Jason. All safety advice will tell you that you have to. Yeah, absolutely.
And it came on.
And it was on, yeah. So stuff like that was happening, and I
saw
well, I saw the outline of a man standing in the doorway. I was
Wishful
changing. So I was doing dishes in the kitchen sink, and the window reflected into the hallway, and I looked up and saw the outline of a man standing in the doorway, and dropped the plate and turned round, only to turn back, and I mean, it was gone. There was nothing there. And again, you think, I'm absolutely losing the plot, and then you think it's you, and like, believe me, I can see how Jason's looking at me right now, and already I'm regretting this decision to tell this story.
I'm a partial journalist.
And I woke up one night. Thanks. So I woke up one night and heard someone breathing and lying in bed beside me, and thought someone had broken into the house, and jumped up, put on the light, turned around to hit them or to grab them, and they were gone. There was nothing there, but there was like an outline in the bed, and I just kept thinking, again, it could be anything. Maybe it's me, just I'm scared of the dark. I mean, it could be I'm already not feeling too. I'm not actually scared of the dark. I'm a big girl.
But you're trying to talk yourself out of believing it because you don't want to accept that it's possible.
But I just didn't think it was. I didn't believe in the paranormal. I don't believe. It's not logical. Probably because I'd never experienced anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I just didn't see how anyone could experience anything. Yeah. So the sort of final straw was that we were sitting talking. And my friend and I are both, I mean, she's still really cynical about it all, and still goes, I don't know, maybe it could have been something. We're sitting talking to each other, and noticed out of the corner of her eye something moving, and a pen had just lifted up and was slowly levitating. When I tell people this, they think I'm absolutely nuts. And I would feel the same if anyone told me
There was a
the
pen
story.
floating in your
There was
hand.
a pen just levitating, and it kind of circled a couple of times and then dropped. And I mean, we were both hugging each other and like jumped over the side of the living room and didn't really know what to do. And just the oddest thing was as well that there had been there was a cupboard that had been filled with stuff from previous tenants, and we decided to get rid of it. Or we decided to kind of clear it out. And when we went in to clear it all out, there were books about ESP and poltergeists and these big crystals.
I thought you were going to say it was like an Indian burial ground.
There was a ghost and it jumped out. No, and it just, so I mean, we didn't stay much longer in that flat, but we were doing a ghost story on the show on Friday, which is why it all sort of came to the forefront again. And this is kind of maybe why it's in my mind. But I think about that when I think about spirituality, because I think about the fact that I didn't believe until something happened. And now I do believe that there's something. I don't really know what it was. I think we label it ghost, or we label it, spirit, or we label it whatever. But I'll never be in the position to qualify or to have it,
validated,
confirmed. So there's got to be something. But I think I think you must go through your life changing your values and beliefs, and I think that if you don't, then there's something wrong, because your experiences teach you, or they should be teaching you. So you should be learning from them. You should be changing and adapting.
There's a famous Muhammad Ali quote that's something like, if you, what is it? You probably know it's better than me. It's something like,
float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
That's it. That's what you saw. No, it's something along the lines of, like, basically, if you show me a man who's the same at 50 as he is at 25, and you show me someone that hasn't lived a life. The idea being that the process of living should change you, and just as you've said, you should never become too attached to anything that you believe, because it could just as easily be disproved. Like, you could go through your whole life believing in ghosts, and then one day some guy shows you this concrete evidence that you had a carbon monoxide leak and that you were actually just mental. But no, like, the point.
Proving to me that
still doesn't rule out the possibility.
No, and sure. I'm taking the piss out of you, but I am. But
there's a first.
But no, but I also will wholeheartedly stand behind the belief that there's, as you said before, there's so many things that we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm just very much a student of David Hume, which I'm taught to be completely skeptical of everything, and that the most likely reason for something is usually the reason. But that's not to say that what you saw was something that could be explained away. I just don't necessarily think it was someone that had died and was haunting the house. It could just as easily be an alien who was. No, you laugh, but it's
that's not comforting.
Because people talk about if
that's what you're trying to.
There's a lot of theories about how the human race came into being. A lot of people think that we might be in an experiment of an alien race. And someone will go, "Don't be silly." You're like, "But you believe that 2,000 years ago this Jewish guy died and came back to life and he's God?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." But do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not.
I like that you're bringing perspective to this, Jason.
The point I'm trying to make is that although I'm mocking you for believing in ghosts, I'm not suggesting that that there's a really simple scientific explanation for what you experienced. I'm just saying that
you like being a bit of a wido.
Well, that goes without saying.
That's okay.
But yeah. Anyway, that was an interesting story, and I would have loved to have experienced it myself.
But I think it's true what you said, Elliot. You have to keep an open mind in life, and I think that having an open mind means that you are far less judgmental on people, and ultimately, you're much happier because you embrace things wholeheartedly. You're more than happy to live and let live, and I think that that's a really good way to live, is to just accept that we're all different, and embrace the differences that we all have, and just really do keep an open mind with as much as you can.
Why are you looking at me?
Just with ghosts. I'm channeling spirits towards you tonight and hoping that you see something that's going to make you believe.
Bring it on.
Would it take that for you to believe?
I want to believe.
I'll give Casper
a call
there.
But this is the thing. If I base my belief system on purely the things that I experience, then the flip side is I just don't believe in anything that I can't experience. So if I have an experience where I thought I saw a man in the corner, and that's the thing that takes me to believe in ghosts, then there's hundreds of other things that I can never experience, but there's no ground for me not to believe that they exist either. The point, and also, there's so many other explanations for things, but I'm not here to tell you that ghosts aren't real.
I'm trying to think of a solid analogy that can demonstrate that even although I've not seen something that I still have faith in the fact that it actually exists.
I mean, the perfect example is like the light spectrum. So there's, infrared light that we can't see, but it is still there. You talk about sound. There's sounds that animals can hear that we can't hear.
Yeah.
So
waveform.
Yeah,
Waveform's
and
a big
so I'm
one.
wholeheartedly.
And the fact that this table here isn't actually solid, that is just an illusion. It's actually made out of, at an atomic level, loads and loads of
So I'm wholeheartedly behind
units.
Yeah, so I'm wholeheartedly behind the idea that.
This is going into metaphysics now.
Yeah, we are a little bit. I know.
But I'm wholeheartedly behind the idea that just because you can't experience it with your senses doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Yes.
I would also say just because you experience it with your senses doesn't mean that it's real. I would say that the senses are incredibly limited.
I think we're moving into the matrix now, aren't we?
You can't base your belief on sensory
live.
information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mic drop.
Oh dear. Okay. So, who or what inspires you?
God, I want to say. God, there's so much to say. I can be competitive. So I love when I meet someone that I think is just incredible at what they do. And in actual fact, I think that it can apply to anyone who does anything and they take great pride in what they do. Mm-hmm. Like I love when you go to the supermarket and you just, you're at the checkout and they're just so precise and they give you all the right information and they ask you, if you do have a card and if you do have, they go through everything and you can tell that they love their job and they take great pride in it and they're happy at work and you just go, God, you're great. And these are the people that I live for meeting, because I just love that people have passion. When I meet anyone, no matter what they do or what walk of life they've come from, to really have a passion for something, it's like, it's infectious, isn't it? When you're around people like that and when you meet people that like talk in their plans and their aspirations and their dreams, and it motivates you, even if they're doing something completely different to what you do. But also in my current job, I would say, or working in media, I love when I meet someone that is just a great presenter, a great reporter, and I think, God, I'd love to be like that, or I'd love to take that this element of what you do and use that myself, or you kind of constantly growing from people, aren't you? You feed off people. It makes it sound a little bit zombie-esque, but you just.
What do you think are the qualities that make somebody a really good presenter, a really engaging presenter?
I think you have to be.
I think he's fishing.
Relatable. You looking for a job?
Just advice.
I think you have to be relatable, don't you? And just be yourself. So, whatever you find funny, laugh at it. There's no point in trying to be anything else, because there's no safety net when things go wrong. So the best advice I can give anyone wanting to present is to be themselves, and that's such bad advice, isn't it? When you're told don't be nervous, and it doesn't stop you being nervous. Being yourself, you kind of question. I think when people are nervous, you sort of question how you should act and how you should behave and what you should say and what you shouldn't say. And the biggest lesson is really, I don't know whether there must be an element of not caring. I think that there has to be something, that sort of fight or flight that comes from within you, that you go, I'm going to fight for this, but knowing when to let go, and knowing that the best thing that you can do is just leave it up to fate and enjoy yourself. And ultimately, if you're not having fun, then I would say, what's the point? There's no point in doing something that you're not enjoying. There's no point in doing something that you don't love. So
I think that is good advice about be yourself. And I know on the surface, again, it's a cliche, and be yourself. All right, yeah, thanks very much for nothing. But I think a lot of the time the nerves come from the fact that people expect, like, people think that you want them to be something that they're not, and they're trying so hard to fit into that. And you have to have faith in the fact that if people think that you're good at something, you're good at it, and so you just have to have that faith to be yourself. I think all the anxiety, especially from being in front of a camera, comes from kind of second guessing how you think people want you to appear. Yeah. So I do think if you just say to yourself, I don't need to prepare answers to these questions. I can just riff it. I can just be myself, and people will like that. And if they don't, then at least they don't like me for who I am, rather than not liking me for who I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, Elliot, you're also asking me on the assumption that I'm a good presenter. So
you're a great presenter, Zara.
So, I mean, I can give advice that I've been given, and that's certainly if that was an onion, that would be the first layer. I think the second layer to that would be then that you have to be comfortable knowing which. I mean, we all have so many sides. We're not one-dimensional. We're not single-dimensional. So we there's various sides to us that we choose to bring out. Different people will bring out of us, and it's finding out which one is where you're comfortable. And I think that's just with experience then. So for anyone starting, you have to absolutely just be yourself.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was assuming that you're a good presenter. You've probably seen enough presenters to be able to make an informed decision on what the qualities are that make a good presenter.
Well,
just saying.
Touché.
Just saying.
Moving on.
Touché.
Yeah. So here's the sort of the last real question that I have for you. If you could pick up the phone and make a call to the 20-year-old you, what would you say?
If you can remember that far back.
It's been going really well until now, hasn't it, Jason? But you just couldn't help yourself.
Started off, I had to say.
I mean, I'm not scared to admit it. I don't mind my age. I'm 31. I don't mind being 31. I don't mind being 31.
Youngster.
Yeah, it's a good age. I mean, I'm trying to cast my mind back and remember specifically what I was doing at that point. I think I'd tell myself not to be so anxious about finding a purpose or finding something to do or finding something that I'm good at, and to just instead do more of what I enjoy doing. As long as it's not going out and having drinks too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 20-year-old me was definitely very anxious about, I knew at that point I was studying business, and I knew that wasn't going to be the career. It wasn't going to make me happy in the way that I hoped it would. I mean, I'm still very hopeful that one day I'll channel all of that into, something that'll be on Dragon's Den, or, something, the next big invention, I'm sure of it. But yeah, I think I just like to don't be so anxious, don't worry so much about it, and what things make you happy. I had always really enjoyed cooking, and I always really enjoyed writing and doing art, and I wish that I had maybe at the time when I could have invested more time doing those things, understood that was the right thing to do. But I'm very grateful that I did realise that I should go travelling, and that's at least something that I can take from that. But yeah, just chill out, 20-year-old Zara, chill out.
Agree with that, to be honest. Yeah, young people are wound up too tight.
Maybe, although I think in my own case I was probably a bit too laid back. A bit of urgency wouldn't have hurt me.
Well, you don't seem to have been or done too bad. Look at your living room. I mean, not everyone has pictures like that up on their wall.
They don't?
It's true, it's true.
Yeah.
Look at the spoils.
Or such a lovely tie.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't have an iPad. Do you have an iPad?
No, I don't. I look like I have an iPad. I'm a professional unicyclist.
Excellent. Zara, that's been a truly fascinating interview. I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I really, really appreciate your candour and your honesty. There's a lot of things that you went into that I thought you probably wouldn't. Probably in particular the whole ghost gambit, that was really interesting.
Yeah, I wish you hadn't gone into it.
I'm kind of regretting that myself, can I just say?
Yeah, that's been awesome.
No, it was good.
Elliot, thank you so much for this. I've enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
I think you make a good team.
Yeah.
Like to see more of that on Edinburgh Reel.
Thanks for co-hosting.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And even though I felt like I knew you before, I feel like I know you much better now.
Oh, likewise. I feel like you make a fantastic sidekick.
Brilliant. Zara,
Thanks, Elliot.
thank you so much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Jay.
Cheers.
We have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls. It's barricaded the world with hate. Goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much, feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost.